I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. Our roll call tonight, all board members are in attendance, and we have a special guest this evening. It's Rihanna McCrave, who is representing the Student Council. She's Vice President filling in for our normal rep. Welcome tonight. We always start with our open forum, which is in accordance to Board Policy 203. I'll read the rules. Input from students, staff, parents, and community members in major decisions can be a valuable form of assistance to the board. Open forum is an opportunity to address the board. At least 10 minutes prior to each meeting, a sign-up sheet will be available at the meeting site for individuals to sign up to address the board. Only those whose names appear on the sign-up sheet at the time the meeting is called to order shall be permitted to address the board. Up to 5 speakers shall be provided a maximum of 3 minutes, 15 minutes total, to address the board unless an exception is granted by the board chair. Speakers will not be allowed to verbally attack, disparage, or potentially defame individual board members, employees, or students, nor may speakers use vulgar or profane language. Also, speakers may be precluded from disclosing personally identifiable private data regarding employees or students. Speakers unwilling to conform to the rules or time constraints may be told that his or her privilege of speaking has ended. If you have any handouts or materials for the board, please submit those to the Executive Assistant, Martha Waltz. Members of the public should not approach the dais. The board will not review handouts during the public comment period. Board members shall listen respectfully to issues brought to them by the community, but not engage the individuals during their time. The board shall not deliberate or take action during the open forum regarding an issue presented. If follow-up by administration is necessary, the chair shall request that the superintendent follow up on the matter. When the board chair proceeds with the meeting, audience comments are no longer in order. However, the board members retain the right to call on district administrators for information to assist the board in its deliberations. I'll also add that we've had a pleasant public forum more recently, but I want to just reiterate that open forum is a safe space for community members to share their experiences, concerns, and feedback. So in this space, we strive to protect First Amendment rights while showing respect for everyone. We would like to ask the community to be respectful not only in speaking at open forum, but also in listening. We as a community have an opportunity to elevate the conversation and create healthy spaces for dialogue and opposing views. We thank the community for demonstrating this, and it shows how we can all collectively do better. So thank you for respectfully sharing, listening, and being engaged in our PLSAS community. Tonight we have 4 speakers. Thank you for listening to me. The first is Beth Satterland, and this is regarding contract settlement. Yes. Yeah.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Beth Satterland, as she said, and I'm an educator in the district, as well as a parent to 1 former Laker and 1 current Laker. Educators in Prior Lake Savage are nearing a breaking point. It is well known that these last 3 years have been the most difficult in public education probably ever. Having an unsettled contract only adds to the stress educators feel on a daily basis. Educators are an essential element of our schools, of course. Our voices need to be heard, and our ideas about improving our own work should matter. Teaching also must be an attractive profession, or else smart, talented young people are going to turn to other careers that probably pay better in the private sector. We need this talent to stay in Prior Lake Savage as our communities continue to grow. In my current role as one of 2 autism and behavior consultants in the district, I primarily support Prior Lake High School, Bridges, both Twin Oaks and Hidden Oaks middle schools. For several years, I also supported the elementary schools, and I worked at Greenwood Elementary as a special education teacher. This role has provided me the opportunity to see staff in action at every single building in the district. I most often connect with teams when things are tough and students are struggling. It's just the nature of my role. The last 3 years have held more of these struggles than I have seen in my 16 years as an educator. Despite this, each and every time I see teams of teachers who have worked extremely hard to implement interventions, hold meetings, make plans, adjust schedules, all to meet the needs of not just the student who is struggling, but of every student in their classroom. It's been a tough go. Veteran teachers are tired, new teachers are overwhelmed. Educators in Prior Lake Savage are asking the district for a fair contract that's good for our students, our families, and for our community. We also ask for one which honors all the work we have done and all the work we will continue to do. We ask for one that will help us attract new teachers and bring fresh ideas and perspectives to our district. A strong union contract is what allows us to have a voice in the district, not just for ourselves, but what is best for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Our next speaker is Chris Gratz, and the topic is contract settlement.
Thank you for allowing me to come tonight and talk to you. I'm not only an educator, I teach third grade at Red Tail, I'm also a parent. I had 2 kids graduate from Prior Lake High School, and I still have 2 kids hopefully going to graduate from Prior Lake High School in the future. As we know, guys, I know our long list of worthy investments to be made for 2023. But one of them would really be worthy of raising compensation for all educators from the first day through when we retire. Minnesota cannot simply provide its students with an education. They deserve to be addressing, we need to be addressing the staffing crisis. As we all know, we have just received the largest increase of funding coming from the state legislative session, and this bargaining season should really be bold. We need to have contracts this year that acknowledge the effects of inflation on educators and our families. Those of us that have been here in the district for quite a while should not be going backwards with increase to when we settle contracts, as some of us have been doing. I have spoken with a lot of seasoned colleagues, and many of them are rethinking their choices of how long they can continue in this profession and making sure that they do have enough for their families. Conditions should be created that encourage experienced educators to stay and also, though, have contracts that would persuade college students that will come into the education career. And again, as Beth stated, let's bring those in. We need young people, but we also need a district that people want to come to. And without increasing and making sure we have a great package deal, this might not happen. And with the staffing shortage, we don't want to be one of those districts in that predicament. A fair and equitable salary and benefit increase will, of course, retain a lot of good teachers. It will also hopefully bring in a lot of other good teachers. And we need the best educators to prepare the next generation of Prior Lake Lakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next, we have Sarah Summers. The topic is contract settlement.
Hello. I'm Sarah Summers, and I'm a high school teacher. And I'll probably be echoing a lot of what my colleagues just said, but I felt it was really important to come here today and let you know that this is a community that we all really like being in. And our union contract, it allows us to advocate for our student needs. Yes, it includes better pay and benefits for our staff, but these pieces help us attract and keep the best staff in Prior Lake to support our students. We need more consistent, loving adults in our schools to help our students grow and thrive. And to that point, a role that I had for several years was the peer coach at the high school, and in that time, I was lucky enough to observe basically every teacher that worked there, and it was one of the most affirming things in my career because of the staff, and the staff supports each other, and I know it's not just at the high school. It's if you were to ask any peer coach or any administrator or any parent, they would tell you that the quality of our educators is top notch. Every person I worked with told me that they went into teaching because they want to help kids. They want to help them learn math, help them find self-confidence, help them turn into happy adults. And I'm a parent myself, and that is the type of teacher and educator I want my kids to have. There's no greater example of this. Like was mentioned before, the last 3 years was just so challenging for everyone, but educators and students. We went through it together, and it was challenging. And so because we've gone above and beyond for our students, I feel like we have made this this community, and I know that we have a community of people who live here who are, not in the building that show up and support our schools as well. And they support them in many ways, like raising money for our colleague, or, the Model UN is paid for by Rotary, or just people bringing us snacks on conferences. And so it really takes a team. We have each other's backs to keep our community moving forward. The teachers in this district, we need your support now, and we need to come together so that we can have a fair return on our work, which includes salary and benefit increases that will help us keep up with the pace of inflation and the cost of living. We are all very passionate about our work and our students. We have shown that time and time again. And we want a contract that respects that work and the dedication we put into this community inside and outside the school walls. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, our final speaker tonight is Katie Gabriel, speaking on book challenge and supporting transgender students.
Good evening, Chair Crosby, Dr. Thomas, and board directors. My name is Katie Gabriel. I use she, her pronouns. I live in Savage, and I have 2 students in the district. I recently read a wonderful book, Melissa, by Alex Gino. It's a story about a transgender 4th grader who tries out for the part of Charlotte in her school play, Charlotte's Web. While it's about a middle grade book, meaning its intended audience is for around ages 8 to 11, I'd encourage everyone in our community to read this book. My understanding is that there's a book challenge underway in the district targeting this book, which was originally published with the title George. I don't know the reasons given for the challenge, but I can make an educated guess. Transgender people exist, just as cisgender people exist. There's no disputing that. And transgender youth exist in our schools. That is fact, no matter how often some adults in our community declare their existence to be, quote, nonsense, end quote. Imagine your 9-year-old self. Imagine your 9-year-old self being transgender and finding a book in your school that stars a transgender character. Imagine the delight and sense of peace in seeing someone like you reflected back in the pages of that book. Imagine your friends reading that book, and as a result, they're gaining understanding and acceptance of transgender people. Perhaps you're having a hard time imagining that scenario. Maybe you grew up in an environment where being transgender was considered, quote, nonsense, end quote. So instead, let's imagine your 9-year-old self living in a community where some adults have declared that having brown eyes is nonsense, and that the existence and humanity of all brown-eyed people is nonsense. And these adults want their children, or any children, to learn from or learn about, don't want their children or any children to learn from or about people with brown eyes, and all books in the library written by and about brown-eyed people should be removed from the shelves. And shame on you for choosing to be born with brown eyes. You are nonsense. How does your 9-year-old self feel about this? What are you feeling deep in your gut? Young people deserve to see themselves reflected in the books in their school. Young people deserve to learn about people who are different than themselves. Most importantly, transgender youth deserve to be affirmed and accepted. I call on everyone in our community to speak up in support of our transgender students and in support of all of our students' right to read. Hate has no place in PLSAS. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. That concludes our open forum for tonight. We will move on to approval of agenda. Can I get a motion to approve, please?
So made.
Velazquez, can I get a second?
Second.
By Director Olsted, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes 7-0. We will now move on to our truth and taxation portion of the meeting, which I will hand off to Executive Director Frederickson to present tonight, and then we will be able to have public comments regarding that.
Amy, Chair Crosby, can we remind them it's really loud? It's just
Yeah.
echoing this way.
Just a moment.
Thank you. I don't know if you guys can hear it. Thank you.
Can you hear Mr. Marshall?
Door being shut gave them a false sense.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Chair Crosby, Superintendent Thomas, members of the board. I'll be going through the budget and the levy certification process. A little later in the agenda, we'll ask you to approve both the levy and the amended budget. The levy certification process, this is just a review of what the process looks like. You approved the preliminary levy back in September. The final levy is due to the Department of Education and the county by the end of December. And then property owners will pay their taxes in May and October based on our final adopted levy. And we will be able to recognize the tax revenue for the school year of '24 and '25. The authority that we have for school levies has to either come from the Minnesota Statute 126C.48, which is set by the commissioner, or voter approved. The voter approved legislation is Minnesota Statute 126C.17. And some of the factors that would impact our change in any of the taxes, for the state level decisions, you could have changes in the state formulas, which we did this year. There could be changes in the sales ratio, which impact our adjusted net tax capacity, which again also happened this year. There can be some compliance law changes. For the local voter, you have either the voter-approved bond referendum, the voter-approved operating referendum, or a voter-approved capital projects levy. We do not have a capital projects levy, but we do have an operating referendum, and we still have some of the bond referendum from when we built the high school. Other considerations that would in fact impact the tax changes are changes in the real estate market. There could be property improvements that have not been previously taxed. There could be changes in the assessed market value of property, which this year happened. And then if there's any changes in classification, so for instance, if you had homestead and was changed to rental property. Some examples that we have of school levies for the voter approved, there are things like the operating referendum, bond and capital projects. Some of the levies that we have use enrollment as the basis for calculation, things like the local optional, operating capital, the Safe Schools levy, and our equity levy all look at enrollment numbers. And then some of them use expenditures as a basis of what you would get in the future. And examples of those are like the long-term facilities maintenance, the career and tech ed levy, the achievement and integration levy, and the lease levy. So because most of our biggest portion of those dollars are going to come from the enrollment-based levies, I have put on here what our enrollment projections were. Beginning of this year, we were projecting 8,701 students in K-12. As you see later on the agenda, our current enrollment is at 8,643. So we're still about 58 students short of what we projected. That's going to have slight impact on the budget. However, we do usually see an increase in students in right after the winter break. So the final levy certification, there's not a lot of difference from what you saw in September. The general fund levy, we're asking for $19.9 million, which is about a 10.13% increase. Those biggest increases comes from local optional, the operating capital, and the long-term facilities maintenance, which there was changes in legislation to increase that formula. We also have a slight decline in the community services fund. Most of the community service funds are based on census data, so there is just a slight decline. And then you'll see a slight decline, about 3% decrease in our debt service, because as we're paying off our bonds, we're not getting new bonds. So as we pay them off, that debt service will decrease. So in summary, we're asking for $35.9 million as the final levy, which is about a 3.92% increase over what we had the previous year. And if we look at the history of what our levies look like, that increase in pay in 17, pay 18 was when we sold the bonds for the high school. But other than that, we've had fairly consistent changes in the levy. Last year, there was a decline. There was a decrease in some of the property values and also the long-term facilities maintenance. This year, however, property values have increased quite a bit. And if you look at the impact that our school levy will have, if you have property value that did not show any increase at all, you're going to see about a 3% increase in the property tax value, or in the property taxes that you'll see on your tax statement. If you're showed a 2% increase in the property values, you're going to see around a 5% increase in your taxes. And if there was a 10% increase in the property value, you're going to see a little under 15%. We look at the tax levies for a residential homestead for this levy certification. You'll see that there are two districts that actually have a smaller tax levy for a residential homestead than us, and that's Jordan and Bloomington. Everybody else will have higher tax levies than what we're going to be showing. The amended budget that we're asking for, this is going to look the same as when we talked about at our study session. We're not changing the general fund. As we've looked at the analysis month by month, it's going to be very close to what we originally projected, and that's a revenue of about $115.1 million with expenditures of about $116.5 million. The food services did not change. The community education changed slightly. They adjusted the revenue and expenses to reflect some changes in specifically Kids Co. and some of the enrollment numbers. So this amended budget has been changed. That first column reflects the actual audit results that we had. And then the only other changes would be the community services. So again, we'll be asking you later in the agenda to vote on these two topics. And if you have any questions, I can certainly answer them.
There you go. Okay. Thank you, Director Frederickson. I have a question. For the enrollment numbers that you quoted on the slide, do those enrollment numbers include both open enrollment students and resident students? Is that the total?
Correct.
So the local tax, so what I'm trying to understand is, does any of the property tax money from open enrollment students, does any of their property tax money come to our district? Or is it just the local tax-paying dollars that fund the open enrollment students?
It would be just the local that we get the state aid on. Any of the students in open enrollment, so the referendum used to be, the formula used to say resident students was calculated using, for the referendum. They've since changed that, I believe it was in 2017. They changed the law to be only the actual attending students, so the pupil units. So our tax levy is only used to support the open enrolled and the resident students, not open enrolled out, or any of the non-pub or any of the charter schools get their own state aid.
Okay, thank you. So just to be transparent with our community, about the revenue that's coming into our district, that it does support, and don't get me wrong, I do support open enrollment. I'm not saying that I don't, but our local tax dollars are supporting the 1,300 open enroll students that are coming into our district. I just want to be clear about that.
We get the state aid for them, and it would be, again, their formulas are based on per pupil units.
But not their tax levy dollars.
Tax levy is, there's different formulas for the tax levies. And again, the referendum used to be, but it's not anymore.
Correct, thank you.
Any other questions from board members?
I believe all this was talked about in the study session. So most of these questions were already answered. So thank you very, very much, Director Frederickson.
So now if any people would like to make public comment or ask clarifying questions regarding the proposed property tax levy and budget, you are welcome to come speak. All right, no takers. We'll move on to our consent agenda. So consent agenda items are considered to be routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed as a consent agenda item and addressed. Do we have any consent agenda items that board members or public would like removed?
Chair Crosby, I would like to pull I have a question in the monthly financial reports that I'd like to ask a question on that. And then I also would like to pull the resignation report as well.
I'm sorry, the what?
Resignations, it's under personnel items, resignations, terminations, and non-renewals.
Okay, so F2.
8F2.
Okay.
And then
So-
the monthly financial report as well.
So we will pull 8C and 8F2, and we will move those to right before new business. Okay. And I'm going to ask other board members to help me remember to address those. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda without those two items, please?
So made.
By Director Olsted. Can I get a second?
Second.
By Director Bullion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes 7-0. And we have a resolution for the acceptance of gifts. And And I think we have two. It's a roll call vote, but I'll list what these gifts are because we are so thankful. Moms for Liberty of Scott County donated 667 pocket constitutions to 7th graders. And Jody and Donovan Johnson donated items to the MinCaps healthcare program. Can I get a motion to accept these gifts?
So made.
By Director Burnick. Can I get a second?
Second.
By Director Atkinson. I will start with Director Olsted.
Yay.
Director Bullion. Director Burnick.
Aye.
Director France.
Aye.
Sorry,
Director
aye.
Velazquez. Director Atkinson.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 7-0. And we'll move on to Laker Pride this evening. A lot of pride.
Brewing in the hallway.
Bottled up all that energy. Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Do you want to introduce him? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just let him jump into the session.
Sit or stand along the wall, whatever you want.
Chair Crosby, Board of Directors, as our students and families come in this evening, I just want to thank Mr. Marshall and his whole team of folks who support our students engaging in athletics and activities. It's clearly a phenomenal way for our students to showcase their talents outside of the classroom, so thank you to the students in advance. And I have recognition certificates, Mr. Marshall.
Okay.
That I'll give to you, and I'll allow you to disperse to the appropriate students as upon completion or at a later date. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Good evening, Dr. Thomas, Board Chair Crosby, and school board members. My apologies for the raucous crowd out there. They get to be a little excited, and certainly excited to be able to be honored and be recognized here this evening. So before we get into the individual student recognition, I'm going to start with our annual fall co-curricular report. I know you've all should have received this, and I think it's really important each time that we do one of these reports to go back to our vision statement and the reason why we do what we do. And so I always kick off with making sure that we are reminded of the fact that the whole idea of having experience at Prior Lake High School in our co-curricular programs is to experience an enjoyable environment of a wide array of extracurricular activities that promote pride, character, sportsmanship, and development of personal and team excellence. And again, these are things that are super important for our coaches and our advisors to always be able to go back to as well, and to remember this is why we do what we do, and this is what makes education-based athletics very different from the club sports and the other sports that we might see out in the community. So we've created a definition of success, and I think so often a lot of people define success in terms of wins and losses and how things happen on the field or in the pool or on the ice, and that is not our definition of success. I mean, again, it is important for us to try to do what we can, especially at that varsity level, to compete, to be able to win where we can, but more importantly, we are looking at these three things. We want to create lifelong memories, we want to be able to develop lifelong relationships, and we want to be able to teach and learn lifelong lessons. So again, so often I think we need to be grounded in these ideas and these beliefs and be able to go back to that. A number of years ago, as we looked at different character traits that we were also looking at, each one of our coaches and our advisors does create a purpose statement. And at one point, I think if many of you, if you had been on the board for a while, you may have actually gone through that process of creating a purpose statement. I know our learning leaders have gone through that within the past 5-6 years as well, in creating a purpose statement in terms of the why. The why it is, why we do what we do as coaches, as advisors, as teachers. And through that process of developing a purpose statement, we also came up with these different character traits. And I can thank Mike Dean, our head volleyball coach, because he was very instrumental in creating this years ago. ago. And if you walk into our gym now, you will actually see a large board up there that has all of these different character traits that are up there. And if you look at the acronym LAKER going down, specifically for moral character traits, so these are traits that we want our athletes and our students involved in activities to be able to carry with them throughout their life. And from a moral character trait, we want them to have love. We want them to display love for the activity, love for the people who are involved with that. We want them to display an appreciation of the fact that they have these opportunities, an appreciation of their opponents, an appreciation of their officials, an appreciation of their coaches and advisors as well. We want them to display kindness. Now, again, we realize sometimes that on the football field or, on the ice, whatever the case might be, they might not seem like they're always being really kind. Okay, but the idea is that, we're no different than those that we're competing against. The only thing that is different is where our parents chose to live. Okay, the difference between us and Shakopee is our zip code. That's it. Otherwise, those people growing up there and going and having experiences there are just the same as our students who are here. So, empathy, it's super important. I think that our student athletes and our co-curricular participants learn to display empathy for their teammates and their coaches and their opponents. And then lastly, certainly to have a respect for the game, a respect for those all involved. And again, this is one of those pieces that we share with our parents as well too, because we do feel that from the parents who are in the stands, it's important that they are also displaying these traits, whether it be toward other parents, toward teammates, toward coaches, toward officials, whatever the case may be. Specific to our performances, then we also have these 5 performance traits. Once again, utilizing the acronym LAKER. We ask that all of our participants think about what kind of legacy they're leaving. When you leave here, how is it that you want people to remember you? What kind of LAKER legacy are you leaving? We want them to be able to be advocates. We want them to be able to step up and take responsibility for themselves, but be able to speak up for others as well too. We want them to have knowledge. Not only do we want them to have a knowledge of the sport or the activity in which they're involved in, but certainly a knowledge of the other teams, their opponents, and the background of the sport that they're in. We want them to have enthusiasm and excitement. We want them to be able to go out there and be excited and ready to go. As you heard out there in the hallway, I think we have a lot of enthusiasm with this crowd tonight. And lastly, and perhaps one of the most important, is we want them to be resilient. We want them to be able to experience setbacks. We want them to be able to know that it's okay to fail. And what we're going to learn from that to be able to move forward. So again, these are things that we continue to stress within our programs with our coaches, our advisors, our parents, and our students themselves. We have our participation numbers as well. Our participation numbers have stayed pretty similar year in and year out. There has been certainly an increase coming out of COVID from a few years ago with these numbers. I think perhaps the one number that I do want to point out is the very last one with our intramural soccer program. We do find it's very important to try to continue to offer sports and activities for all of our students at Prior Lake High School. Last year we added intramural soccer, and again at that point we only had 14, but we did jump up to 24 students this past fall, which again doesn't seem like it's necessarily a whole lot, but that kind of growth is something that we want to continue to be able to see. And it's been a nice program because it's with intramural soccer, we were able to play outside. We're also able to go inside and play futsal, which has just, again, been a nice opportunity for a lot of our students to be able to participate in. So for me, the intramurals are some of those ones that we want to continue to see that growth in. So specifically with our scoreboard update from this past fall, we had a lot of success, both in what I defined earlier, but also specifically in how we competed and what we did out there. There are eight sports that we participate in the fall within the South Suburban Conference. In 3 of those 8 sports, we ended up as South Suburban Conference champions. There's not another school in the South Suburban Conference who can say they did the same thing this past fall. So it was very, very successful in that sense. Additionally, our numbers in terms of spectators and people coming out to the events also increased. So it's been really, I think, a nice opportunity to be able to display a lot of school spirit. If you're around during the homecoming football game, unfortunately the second half of the game ended up, Rihanna, you might have been there. We got rained out. We had some major weather delays, but certainly ended up being a unique experience and something that I think will stay with these students for quite a long time. Some of these individuals who are up there are individuals that we are going to recognize tonight. One of our teams, girls tennis, they finished 9-0. Unfortunately, we didn't have anybody move on to the state level, and that's what we recognize here. But for them to finish 9-0 in the conference was very impressive. We did have some injuries right at the end of the season, which did prevent some of those individuals from being able to qualify for the state tournament. The first person I want to recognize tonight, though, is from our boys cross country team. Hootie Haig. Hootie, where are you? Come on up. So Hootie's a senior this year. He finished eighth. He finished eighth in the the team finished eighth in the South Suburban Conference. Hootie finished as the individual conference champion. He went on to sections. At sections, his whole goal was just to make sure that he made it to state, which he did. And at the state meet, which they moved to the first time up to the Bolstead Golf Course by the U of M, Hootie finished 10th this year, finishing with all state honors at the state meet. So congratulations, Hootie. I do think it's important to note as well, with Hootie, his coach, John Marish, he's one of our tech ed teachers. Coach Marish is stepping down as our coach this year. He's been an absolutely unbelievable coach, and I know he just wants to go in some different directions and will continue to teach at the high school. But certainly kudos out to Coach Marish as well for everything that he has done for the program. The next thing we're going to recognize is our girls swimming and diving team. And let's have those individuals who qualified and swam at state come on up. So our girls swimming and diving team finished 9-0 this year as conference champs. I think perhaps even more impressive is that they are now on a 55 consecutive dual meet streak, which is unbelievable. I think we go back, Coach Haycraft, is that 5 or 6 years of consecutive conference championships? 6, Alex knows. 6 years of consecutive conference championships. Which is truly amazing to win that many in a row. So they went to the section meet where they finished 3rd at the section meet. And here we have some of our individual qualifiers from the state AA meet where they finished in 7th place this year. Ivy Solt was 2nd in the 500 free, and she finished as state champ in the 500-yard freestyle. Who was not with us tonight, finished 10th in the 200 free. Alex Peterson finished 14th in the 50 free and in the 100 fly. Alex is with us tonight. Hundiff is with us tonight. She finished 7th in diving as well. The 200 freestyle relay of Alex, Natalie, Livy, Solt, and Ivy finished in 11th, and the 400 freestyle relay of Janessa Centers, Alex, Natalie, and Ivy finished in 4th place. So truly some remarkable swims as the season went on. And I think Ann is the only one who's graduating from up here right now, right? So many of the crew will be back next year. And really another big shout out as well to our coach, Katie Haycraft. Katie's been coaching and working within the district for quite a few number of years. And the program that she and her husband, Justin, have developed over the years is just absolutely outstanding and certainly one of the best, if not the best in the state. So congrats. Real quick, if that's okay. Oh, did you want to talk? No. Oh. And the last team we're going to recognize here tonight is our girls cross country team. Girls, come on up. The girls cross country team finished as the conference champions this year. I believe it was the 3rd year in a row, if I remember correctly. It's all 3 years that I've been athletic director, so that must be why that happened. In addition, they finished as section champions this year, which hasn't happened in the last couple of years, qualifying for a team, as a team for the state Class AA championships. At the state Class AA championships, this group of girls, they ran remarkably well and actually ended up finishing in 2nd place overall at the state meet. And this year's team at the state meet consisted of Isabel Reinders, Layla Venick, Sarah Gastany, Keely Moling, Clara Gillen, Maggie Hain, and Brooke Marquardt. Now, obviously, they're not all with us here tonight, but certainly a big congratulations to those of you who are here. Nice job. Just real quick, so if you want to go up in the front, and then we also have to recognize Coach Dan Saad. Coach has been coaching the cross-country team now for over 20 years. 31 years, over 30 years with this program. And I think this is probably the best this team has ever finished. Is that correct? The highest finish. 2nd in 2009. So there we go. So parents, if you want to take some pictures, and then girls swimmers, we'll have you come right back up after this. And diver. Come on up, ladies.
Yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Okay, Woody, come on up. And Coach Marish.
Yeah.
All right, congratulations again to all of our student athletes and coaches.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Final group that we want to recognize tonight, and that's a number of our students who are part of our choir program. This year, we had 11 singers from Prior Lake High School have been accepted to the 2022-2023 ACDA of Minnesota 9 and 10 honor choirs. So we've got the SSA, which is our treble voices, Grace Galbus, Sienna Havda, and Caitlin Weinberger. If you're here, come on up as your name gets called off. Ladies, come on up. The TTBB, which is our tenors and our basses, are Wyatt Gillis, Justin Borg, and Sawyer Olson. And then our SATB, which is the mixed voices, Chloe Erickson, Sophie Callis, Ingrid Olson, Sabrina Jaspers, and Lucas Knudsen. And I think that it's important to note with our choir program that since 2015, this district has sent 266 students in grades 4 to 11 to a state-level honor choir or an all-state choir. And so that is huge. In the spring, we usually will recognize the all-state, and so they have not had those auditions yet. But we max out with the number of students who can qualify for this every year, and we are one of very few high schools who actually do this. So again, to have all 11 of these students be able to receive this honor is truly a credit to them and a credit to both Randy Erlison and Rob Hahn, our two choir directors as well too. So congratulations to all of you.
Very good.
Congratulations again. A few more pictures. The last piece I just want to mention, in addition to our wonderful singers and fine arts programs, our theater program put on a fantastic production of Grease this fall. Hopefully many of you were able to make it out to that. They did receive an honorable mention through the Hennepin Theater Spotlight Award for our fall musical, which is, again, a big accomplishment for them too. So lastly, again, I just want to say a big thank you. Thank you to certainly our coaches, our advisors, our students who are involved in all of these wonderful programs, our parents who are there to help and support, our community in general, and certainly all of you up here as well, because I do think that all of you view our co-curricular programs as an extension of the classroom, as something that is extremely vital and important for the development of our students. And without your support, we would not be able to do the things that we do. So thank you very much.
I just want to thank you all for coming out tonight and sharing your wonderful accomplishments with us. I cannot imagine the amount of work you all have put in and in representing our schools, and we're just very thankful and grateful and proud of you. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's so quiet when they come in here.
Thank you, Chair Crosby and Board. That is our Laker Pride for this evening.
We're losing our crowd. Pretty fun to hear about their accomplishments. So moving on, in personnel items, Director Herman will be speaking to us tonight, asking us to approve some additional educational support staff and the Juneteenth MOU, but we'll start with the first.
Thank you, Chair Crosby, member of the board. We're bringing forward a staffing request based on a new student need to change a resource para to a center-based para. That is a different lane in that contract and also is increasing it by 0.5 hours per day. So that is a total of around $2,842.30 cents out of the general fund for additional costs.
All right, thank you. Can I get a motion to approve?
So made.
By Director Velazquez, a second?
Second.
By Director Burnick. Any questions or comments? Go ahead.
Could you explain the difference for us between the center lane para versus the other type that they're moving to, and what this entails as far as the workload?
Thank you, Vice Chair Franz. The difference between center-based and resource para, center-based para is working within a center-based program within one of our schools, whether that's life skills or another one of our center-based, and they're solely, the vast majority of their time is with center-based students in those specific programs. Resource paras are also with our special education students, but they're supporting within the classroom, not within one of our center-based programs. And depending on where the program is, the level, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school, those hours change based off of the needs of those students and the times of the days that they support them.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. The other item for requested approval is the Juneteenth Memorandum of Understanding. Director Herman?
Thank you, Chair Crosby, members of the board, Dr. Thomas. As we brought forward last year with the change in legislation to add Juneteenth as a state holiday, we quickly provided a MOU because it changed in May and we had to quickly get it done for June. But this is for this upcoming Juneteenth. Then next round of contract negotiations for our 12-month employees that this impacts, we will look at updating the contracts. But for this year, we are asking for the approval of this MOU with the corresponding employee contracts that have 12-month employees that this would impact.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve?
So made.
By Director Velazquez, a second?
Second.
By Director Burnick. Any questions or comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Thank you, Director Herman. We have no unfinished business. We do have new business, but I believe this is where we will return to our consent agenda items that were pulled. The first is the monthly financial report.
Yes, thank you, Chair Crosby. I'm going back to item 8C. So on the first page of the monthly financial report, I just have a question for Director Frederickson. My question is, so as I'm looking at the expenditures, and it says year-to-date, our general fund expenditures as of October 31st, 2023, were $29.9 million, compared to $26.9 million to the previous fiscal year. Can you help me understand, if we are $3 million ahead in spending, are you projecting our budget to be the same for the 23-24 school year based on the increase, where we're seeing the increased expenditures so far this year?
Yes, Director Atkinson, that is what we assumed. As we talked about in the study session, there are some things that we bought last year that were one-time expenses that we won't be seeing going forward. And there are also some things that we have this year that will look different. We haven't settled all of our contracts yet, so we're making some assumptions. So as I stated before, we are continually watching this. A lot of these are cyclical, So it's just going to depend. You can't really compare necessarily month to month by the year to year because there are different things that we've purchased last year that we're not going to this year. So again, we're just watching it every month to make sure that we don't have any surprises and that we're right on track for what we projected our expenditures to be. And so far, we have been.
Thank you for that. Do you happen to have an easily put together report? Certainly not asking you to create any work for you, but I know Lakeville has a really nice report that shows a rolling. These are our actuals for the months that have passed, and then projects the budget out for the rest of the year, so that every month we can see sort of where if there's any movement on the yearly budget from a projection standpoint. Does that make sense? I can get you an example of what they have, but I don't want you to recreate anything. That's why I'm asking if you have something already created.
Yep, no, so as we look at our analysis that we do every month, we have a report called Trial Balance that we look at every month that projects out what the future years are going to look like. You make some adjustments and assumptions. Again, we kind of put it together in this document. We don't necessarily give the entire analytical package that we do to go through all of the monthly reports. It just summarizes everything in here, but I can certainly give you that report if you want to see it every month. Again, it's for what it's worth, it's at a point in time, and you're making some assumptions to get through the rest of the year, which is why we've been trying to compare, year over year on here. And so far, I mean, if you look year over year, we've been pretty consistent in what we're spending. When you look at the expenditure summary on page 2, salaries are at 19, 21, and 20%. So they're not hugely different as you compare the 3 years and the percentages that we've spent so far. But again, we can certainly provide other information if you're interested in seeing it.
Well, like I said, I don't want to create extra work for you. If you have a report, I think it's helpful to be able to see this is where, these are actual numbers and this is how the rest is rolling. But certainly would love board feedback on that as well.
Comments from the board?
I'm very familiar with trial balances, and no, I wouldn't need it. We have the year-to-date actuals, which is 10 times better than what we had in the last couple of years, so thank you very much, Tammy. But the year-to-date actuals on a monthly basis, showing the rolling, and then also showing the breakdown, which the trial balance would be overwhelming and not have this summary, which would be very hard to read. It'd be like getting our disbursement at that level. So I'm fine with the year-to-date, the monthly year-to-date actuals. That is actually much easier to read.
I would agree with, I agree with Mary. I appreciate the summary, and I don't need to see the spreadsheet analysis every month. Anybody else want to?
I would say I am fine with how the information is presented as is. However, anytime there's more information and it's given in a way that is easily discernible from community members that might not have school finance background, anything to give information is always helpful. I think that the information that you do provide is sufficient for me.
Any other feedback from board members? Yeah, I would agree. I think what we're working with here on this, with this document has really been really helpful for us as a board in comparison to the past. And also, I think to Director Atkinson's point of asking questions when we need to ask questions because we're seeing something that just is maybe raising a question. That's why we're here. That's our job. And so I think we're all able to do that with the information you provide. So I appreciate that.
And I don't want to discount that. This report, because I went back and looked at what was provided last year at this same time period, and it was not at all what you have put together. So I do agree. I would just ask for transparency where if you are seeing
major shifts on how the year is going to end up, if you could please just, keep us abreast of that. Thank you.
That's what's actually really nice about the monthly highlights that you give. That's an opportunity to maybe lay that out there too.
Yeah, and I didn't see, am I missing?
Director Frederickson already stated she did go over these details and warn us that there were some fluctuations, and she's been watching it closely in the study session in which we did go over these numbers. So that was very, very helpful.
Can you help point me to, I'm not seeing, where is the total that shows the 116.5 million of that you're forecasting? Because I see it broken out by month, but I'm not seeing anything that shows this is where the total is going to end for the year. Is that in this report? Maybe that's just the piece that I'm missing, like the total number.
It's on that
Well,
page.
it does say on page 2, under the budget amounts. It's broken out by the general fund and then food services, community debt service. So it has the 115.1 million revenue budget, 116.5 million expenditures. And then the next column has the year-to-date. And then it just shows what the year-to-date is as a percentage of the budget.
So the 116 is just to the left of the 29.
Yep, it's that first section.
The the budget.
On page 2.
Page 6.
On
Page 6, okay. Let me see, I'm just going to go there and make sure I have that's clear.
On page 2 of the document, sorry. So keep
Well, I'm looking at the expenditure
I
summary.
see it on page 6,
yeah.
thank you. That's where I was looking for. I did not see it on the first page recap, so now that I know to look to page 6, I'll go to there. Thank you for clarifying that. If there's other information that you guys would like to see on here, we can certainly add it. We were trying to follow our financial statements, and this is kind of what's included in financial statements. But we can add or delete things on here.
And that's also why the percentages are nice, so we get an understanding of where we're running ahead or not.
Yeah.
I really appreciate those. Okay, I think we're ready. Can we get a motion to approve?
So made.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
we're not
There was
done?
one other thing pulled
Sorry,
from the consent
go
agenda,
ahead.
so I don't know, do
Well,
we approve them
We'll
separately?
just do
or-
this
8C.
one.
Okay,
Director Burdick, motion to approve.
8C.
Second.
Second.
Director Velazquez, all in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Passes 7-0. And then the other item pulled was 8F2, the resignations.
Yeah, so thank you. I just have a question on the resignations. I see that we have 4 paras in the resignations. And my question is, are these positions currently listed online? I saw we have 7 listed online that we're currently have posted. And then, so my question is, are these 4 included in the 7 or in these addition to the 7 for paras that are posted online for employment?
Director Atkinson, thank you for your question. I would have to specifically go look at the current postings to make sure I give an accurate statement on that. What I can say is in general practices, as soon as we have a resignation on hand and we move forward with the posting, we don't go forward with a hire until the board approves it, obviously, but as soon as we're aware of an opening, we do post that as soon as possible to make sure we can fill. But I can verify what specifically is posted, current openings, whether these have been hired or not, since some of these, due to the timing of board meetings, it's been about a month since they've been open, so they may have already been hired. But I can definitely look into that and get back to the board with a report on that.
And it looks like we did hire a para as well in the approval.
That's
One of the, yeah.
Yes, Chair Crosby, that is accurate. So since it's kind of a moving puzzle in which openings are filled and internal moves when openings happen and all that kind of stuff, it's difficult to state right now, but I'll definitely look into that and send an email to the board with a report on the openings.
And how many paras do we have total in our district?
Director Atkinson, members of the board, I can get back to you on that FTE currently. I don't have that on the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
So made.
Second?
Second.
Bullion, and then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that passes 7-0. That moves us on to new business. Our first item on there is the new course proposals at Prior Lake High School. Dr. Edwards is here. So they're being proposed for board action, and he can speak to that tonight.
Yes, thank you, Board Chair, members of the board. I would like to, first of all, call attention to a couple of typos. In the opening paragraph there, I refer to the 23-24 school year. We're currently in that. This is the time of year when it gets a little bit, what year are we talking about? So I apologize. At the end of it, that memo, it does state that your action tonight would allow us, pending approval, to move these courses forward into the registration guide for the 24-25 school year. So that is accurate at the end, the last statement of the memo. The other thing I wanted to also call attention to is I refer to the district curriculum advisory. This is a memo, an annual memo that we bring forward to the board in December, and I didn't catch the change in title for that particular advisory committee, but on that topic, the Teaching and Learning Advisory did meet in November and had an opportunity to review and get clarification and understanding around these course proposals that are being brought forward. Once again, these are, each year we bring forward some course proposals that are brand new, some that are coming back after possible years of not being offered, and some are replacement and others are expansion of offerings, a variety of courses there. And again, we went into detail, provided a paragraph description of each of these, preliminary description of each of these to the District Teaching and Learning Advisory back in November. Got input from them and any clarifications or questions around each of these courses. And the format that we're asking for tonight, pending approval, would be that it would go into the registration guide that we would begin then in January. And as always, registration, particularly in the list of the courses, which many of these are elective offerings, actually all of them are, I think, essentially elective offerings, are based upon registration. Interest drives that at the secondary level and at the high school level specifically with these courses that they appear in the registration guide. We register and the students based upon what they desire, and then we take a look at that from a staffing scenario, which we're planning to do in mid-February through mid-March with our leaders at the secondary level and all levels across the district. And that's what we have. And I think in summary, I would say of the courses, again, it's responsive to interest, students expressing interest, showing interest in certain offerings, and the departments responding accordingly.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. Can I get, any questions or comments before we move forward? Go ahead.
Dr. Edwards, thank you very much for this. I have a couple of questions. First of all, with the astronomy and the immunology and pathology, are there prerequisite science courses for those?
In some cases, there would be, yes, and those would all be listed. Those are all listed then in, I'm not prepared to answer specifically to each of those, but if there were prerequisite courses, they would be listed as such in the registration guide.
Okay, because that's what I was wondering. So astronomy, I'm not quite sure what that would be, but immunology and pathology, I would assume that at least one biology course.
Correct. And the 10th grade biology course, I can speak specifically to that, is a requirement that would be a precursor to this course for sure.
Okay, is this, the immunology and pathology seems very specific. In some schools, they do have that as an AP course and replacement for AP biology. Is that an option here?
That is not what is being requested here. We have AP biology that also is a complementary course to the biology course that's taken in 10th grade. This is not an AP designation course.
Okay. And then the Spanish Immersion B for Heritage Speakers, I assume that our current Spanish Immersion for Heritage Speakers becomes an A?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So this would be the sophomore level course, second year in the high school level course that students would continue into if they so desire.
Now, we also have the Spanish Immersion for Global Studies and all that, so that's just a continuation for the Lago del Lago continuation through there. And I was kind of wondering, is that also open to native speakers?
That
since-
is. Yep.
Okay,
Correct. Both of those courses are open. We did that, if you recall, coming into this year to increase interest and have more students because we had a small group of students coming in and have found that that would be a desire to continue.
okay. And then I just want to clarify, because being a former member of the Teaching and Learning, or the DCAT committee, as it was previously called, each one of these requires a certain number of students. So if they don't get filled, and the students need to be notified in a fairly short order so they can register for another course, are all of these then, from what I remember, I think it was like 20 students?
Yeah, typically it has been in the 20 to 25 student range. That has varied from year to year over years, depending on our staffing model allocation. But it's been somewhere in that neighborhood that we try to get at least 25 from the standpoint that often when we have 25 students expressing interest, it becomes a singleton offering, and then from a scheduling perspective, there are challenges. So that's been our number, between 20 and 25. We have made exceptions. For example, we did make exception last year in a staffing model for the immersion because it was a new program getting off the ground at the high school.
Right. That's what I was just going to ask that about the immersion B for heritage speakers, if that was going to be an exception then, potentially?
Potentially, we would look at that as the
Okay.
numbers come in. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't see, we're not dropping any electives off, we're adding, or did some naturally drop off that are not being represented here?
There are some courses that these offerings would replace. Like, one of the conversations that the high school administrative team has with each of the respective departments on an annual basis is looking at numbers, and if certain courses don't seem to have the desired interest from our students, that those courses go by the wayside and get replaced by courses that might be more current to our students.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions or comments?
Yeah, so that actually was one of my questions. Do you have a list of those courses that these will be replacing?
I don't have a list currently here. I could certainly consult with the high school admin team and bring that back to the board.
Yeah, and then if they all are just a one-for-one replacement, would it be to assume that none of these will require additional staffing? Or will they require additional staffing because they have different licensure requirements?
All of these courses would fit within existing departments, and we would adjust. You know, there is flexibility or fluctuation from year to year by tenths, 2/10, 4/10 within each of, particularly frankly, in all areas, that varies. But it is, again, a registration, student interest-driven process that we take into consideration.
If I, excuse me, if I can also just add, we talked about this at the committee as well. These are also supported by the departments, so they can't bring forth a course unless they are willing to be able to support that. So it's got to be within the confines of the support within those departments. So just want to add that additional extension.
And I'd add one further comment. Within the department from a sustainability standpoint as well.
Right.
That we don't want any courses being brought forward
One and
that
done.
one instructor is advocating for, and so that we can sustain all course offerings that we desire to.
Yeah, thank you for that.
And is it safe to say that should we have demand for all of these and maybe others, that we maybe are considering not offering, but if we have demand for them, we're going to offer what we can.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Each year, that is a exercise that the high school administrative team with the department chairs goes through with each department chair from each respective department to say, these are the courses we are going to want to offer, particularly when we're offering new courses, want to get them off the ground. We might have to accept some slightly larger class sizes in other courses, for example.
Great. Other comments from board members? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve?
So made.
by Director Atkinson, and a second
Second.
by Director Bullion. All in favor?
Point of order, are we doing,
All, sorry,
do we
we'll
do
be
math
doing,
too, are we doing them separately?
it was my
Agreed.
understanding we were doing them all, but
Yeah, we actually should probably, now that
I'm
that's a
sorry.
great order, yep, I should have
Wondered about
spoken to
that.
each of them too, so thank you.
Thank
If
you.
I may?
wait and do them all then.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So what you see here, this also was presented to the District Teaching and Learning Advisory, the secondary math sequence. As part of our math curriculum review process, that has been a K-12 process. We recently engaged in the month of October and November more fully with our secondary 612 math teaching representation to the math committee, from the math committee, and talked about the course sequence and have created a document that shows the pathways for our students as they transition through our system. One of the things that we shared in detail with the Teaching and Learning Advisory, we had a representative from the middle school as well as a representative from the high school department speaking to this. They would do it much more justice than I, but specifically, we are looking at the foundational skills of Algebra 1 being so key to our students' success, to accessing further math content as they move through our system, that we are ensuring that 8th grade is the linear algebra distinction or the traditional Algebra 1 course, giving students the option to take the traditional Algebra 1 course in 8th grade or take linear algebra followed by Algebra 1 course in 9th grade. So you can see the different pathways reflected there in the document, and one point of note why we have two different documents, one for next year, 24-25, and one for 25-26, is that we have, as we go through this transition, we have 6th graders currently who have been identified for two different courses, either a honors level 6th grade course or a general level 6th grade course. Given that we have those students identified, next year we will be offering that similar identification and two-pathway system in 7th grade. But the following year, this year, bringing in this year's 6th graders, we will be maintaining what we are doing currently at the elementary level in 5th grade, where all students, with one exception, we have students in the SAGE program at 5th grade who are receiving a 6th grade curriculum. They will come into our system next year and be in the 7th grade advanced. But that's why we have two different pathway descriptions that were provided in your board packet. Again, ultimately getting that our foundational skills of math are solid so that students can have multiple pathways to follow as they get into their junior and senior year, setting a course for those advanced students that desire to take on a heavy course load in their math. By the time they're juniors and seniors, they are well prepared for doing so.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
I have a question. Do you have any 6th graders that are going into algebra?
We do not currently have any 6th graders. No, I take that back. We probably, that are currently doing algebra?
Correct.
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Not to my knowledge, we do not. That would be a double grade skipped, we would refer to that as. We do have students in our system that have been, and we certainly have had situations historically where that's the case. There's a process, a policy related to subject-specific grade acceleration that we apply that to. But the frequency of that has decreased in recent years. We have single grade skip students.
And the only reason why I asked that is because of the delineation between middle school and high school, that if they were to do that, they would be out of math then in middle school what's offered.
And we have had students who are transported to the high school to take their math course, I see a nod over here. We might have one sitting at the table potentially, or just aware.
Just aware. I have some friends that did.
Other comments or questions?
I think it's important to, this process was fascinating to me personally, going through this on the Teaching and Learning Committee. And I think it's important to point out too that the bottom, and if this changed, let me know, but the computer science electives, they count toward a math credit.
They do not. They are taught
that
by
change?
members of the math department, but they do not count as, they certainly, again, they're taught by, they do not count as there are 3 math credits
Right,
at the high school level.
right.
So Algebra 1, Geometry,
Geometry,
Algebra
Algebra
2
2.
is the standard
Right.
of meeting those requirements. These are above and beyond.
Why would I have had that written down? Am I thinking college or?
Possible, or we did talk a little bit about how the offering comes out of the math department or is initiated in the math
Maybe
department.
that's why.
We do have some other departments that currently do teach that.
Okay.
Courses in that sequence. I think it's a tech education teacher that also has taught in that area.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, we'll start over. Can I get a motion to approve these courses?
So made.
By Director Bullion, a second.
Second.
By Director Velazquez, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, that passes 7-0. Now we will consider open enrollment for 24-25. So Prior Lake Savage Area Schools welcomes non-resident students through Minnesota's open enrollment program. We welcome their contribution to our community of learners. For school year 24-25, we have capacity and are accepting applications for open enrollment up until January 30th, 2024. PLSAS may admit your child after this deadline if there is capacity. Board approval of accepting open enrollment applications for 24-25 is requested.
Chair Crosby, could I just make a clarification? So the students that come into our district open enrolled in, we get revenue for those students for any of the funding that we give formula-based. Any of those students going out, whatever the open enrolled district that they're going to, get those revenues for the students going out. We see more students coming in than we see going out, so the net effect to our revenue is going to be an increase because of the open enrolled students in.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? All right, can I get a motion to approve 24-25 open enrollment?
So made.
By Director Olsted, second.
Second.
By Director Velazquez, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, that passes 7-0 as well. Now we will move on for the official approval of the 23 payable 24 levy certification. So that was all presented to us in the truth and taxation portion of the meeting, and we are requested to approve as it was presented. Can I get a motion?
So made.
By Director Atkinson, and a second?
Second.
By Director Bullion. Questions or comments before we vote? Okay, all in.
I just have one question, or I have one comment. I just say I've reviewed other districts' levy certifications, and even with a max certification, our property taxes paid to the school district are lower or in line with other districts. So my hope is by supporting this max certification of 3.92% that we can continue to be fiscally responsible and avoid an operating referendum in the 24 election. So thank you.
All in favor of approving the 23 payable 24 levy certification?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. And next is our 23-24 final budget approval. We also had that presentation earlier, and so board action is requested. Can I get a motion to approve?
So made.
By Director Velazquez, and a second.
Second.
By Director Olsted. Questions or comments prior to our vote?
Director Cosby, can I request a roll call vote for the budget, please?
Yes.
Thank you. And then I do have a point of order question in regard to enrollment. Director Frederickson, you had stated enrollment numbers of, I wrote down 8643, but I think there was another number. My question is, in the community budget guide that's posted online under the finance department, the October 1st budget numbers were 8,619. And with all the conversation we've heard of declining birth rates and people, fewer residents moving into our district, can you help me understand how we're projected to see increased enrollment of almost 100 students when the October 1st number was 8619?
I'd have to look at so enrollment changes like on a daily basis. So we have to do enrollment, the official count is October 1st. We have to report that. You technically have until December 15th to finalize your October 1st enrollment. The students have to be enrolled on October 1st, but you may not have had them all reported. We do have a MARS final tape going in, I believe, the end of this week or beginning of next week, which will have the final numbers for that October 1st count. I'd have to look at them. But again, when we do the enrollment report every month, those are students that we have sitting in our classrooms. There's just going to be changes every week. We're going to have changes. When we do budgets back in the spring, we're making an estimate of what it's going to look like based on the previous couple years. We've seen increases from last year. We saw a few increases from the year before. So they're going to change. Depending on what point in time you ask me, I'm going to give you whatever the updated numbers are at that point. So I'd have to look at the documents and what the date was that we gave you those enrollment numbers.
It's on the community budget guide that's listed on our website.
Yeah, and those were
from
done.
October 1st.
That was done from the spring.
Okay.
With those enrollment projections. And then, of course, we have the October 1st. And then you just saw tonight that there's 8,643 compared to the 8,701 that we were hoping we were going to get this year. So in the spring, we were being not quite as optimistic. During the summer, we did see increase in number of kids, which is why we opened up a couple new sections in our classrooms that the board graciously approved for us.
Thank you. I appreciate all your hard work and Dr. Thomas's hard work on the budget and for added transparency with the community town hall meetings that we had and the financial dashboard. Looking back to when we started the budget process in April, I was under the understanding that it was my elected responsibility to support bringing a balanced budget to our taxpayers. Now knowing what our 5-year forecast looks like, I strongly support following our board policy 701, which states that the school board shall bring forth a balanced budget with expenditures within the projected revenues.
Point of order.
Let it be known.
Our policy 701 does not state balanced budget, nor does it even mention those words.
I would point to order on that. I'm not sure who can read the policy, but my understanding is that it reads that I'll pull it up. Okay, under board policy 701.
Point of order, why are we debating 701 right now?
Yeah, I'm just stating
curious.
that my understanding is that it's my elected official to follow board policy 701, which states that the school board shall bring forth a balanced budget with expenditures within projected revenues, which is stated in board policy 701. I'll just finish. let it be known that while I supported the majority of the investments that we have made in our district, my concern is with the $1.4 million that we will be deficit spending if this budget is approved tonight. A fiscally responsible board would have found a way to carve off unnecessary spending while shifting funding to cover the new investments versus putting the added financial burden on our community for the future. Thank you.
Any other comments from board members? I think the one thing I want to point out is that 1.4 that came out of the general fund, we talked about this at the study session, they were one-time funds. This is not, it's not sustainable funds, which is precisely why the general fund balance exists. And it also gets us more within our board policy, closer to that cap of 12%. So I'm real comfortable with it based on our conversation in the study session, and just want to point that out.
It's not even the definition of deficit spending since we took it out of the overage from the fund balance. So I'm comfortable with that, and I'm glad we made those expenditures, and I'm glad we added the additional counselors and the dean and everything else that we did add. It was needed. It was needed for student support, for mental health support in general. So I have no problem with it either.
Any other comments from board
I
members?
can support the budget as it's presented tonight as well. I agree with the amount of conversations we've had at study sessions and the investments in our kids and our community. I personally saw it when I toured our buildings. Our class sizes are trending in the direction that it's really great to see for our teachers and to support them. So I would agree that, I mean, we've been talking about that $1.4 million deficit spend, or I'm sorry, out of the reserves, our fund balance, as we've been talking about that since April or May. And we've put those dollars into work, into our buildings, and I feel like I'm seeing some of the results from what I'm hearing from teachers in our community. So I support it.
And we don't have an obligation we don't define balanced budget anywhere in the policy. We define responsible spend, and that we do what's right according to the mission and vision of the district. And we were over on our general fund, on our fund balance, and it was a responsible spend of that money. And I want to reiterate, I'm glad we did it.
All right, I think Director Atkinson requested a roll call vote, so we will do that. Director Olsted.
Aye.
Director Bullion.
Aye.
Director Burdick.
Aye.
Director France.
Aye.
Director Velazquez.
Aye.
Director Atkinson.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 6-1. Next, we have our approval of, sorry, just a minute. We have approval of combined polling location resolution. So do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I'll
Thank
just,
you.
thank you, Chair Crosby, Board of Directors. This is an annual resolution that we take. I won't read the full resolution in its entirety, but essentially it allows us to establish a combined polling place. And so we do that at Spring Lake Township Hall each year, or in the portion of a voting. So this combined location allows for us to merge Spring Lake Township and Sand Creek Township and Cedar Lake Township into one polling space for efficiency. So that's what the resolution is recognizing. And just for the point of order for you all, Red Tail is one of our schools that's also designated as a polling space. Not a combined, but it's just one of our regular polling sites as well.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve?
So made.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Director Velazquez, Director Bullion, and then this is another roll call vote. Before I throw it out, any questions or comments from board members? Okay. Director Atkinson?
Aye.
Director Velazquez?
Aye.
Director France?
Aye.
Director Burdick?
Aye.
Director Bullion?
Aye.
Director Alston?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 7-0. Next is just touching base from a process standpoint on our organizational meeting discussion. So the organizational meeting for the school board happens in January. And the process for that is in policy, but what will happen is the board chair will send out an email to the board, and it will identify a list of committees and a request to let the board chair know of those you are interested in for the next calendar year. Also included will be meeting dates and times, and then the board chair per policy assigns the board members, taking into account past history serving on a particular committee, strengths, et cetera. And then that completed document will be passed out at the organizational meeting in January and voted on. So please reply to that email just to the board chair with your interest. And then as a reminder, the roles of chair, vice chair, clerk, and treasurer are determined via nominations and board voting in that January meeting. And I think that sums it up. If there are any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, actually. My first question is as it relates to policy 213, which does govern this policy. And I apologize, I'm just trying to pull it up here. I believe there's something in the policy that states that, I'm sorry, it's going to take me a second to find it.
Which number are you talking about?
213.
213?
Yeah, I thought okay, so I'm just going to say what I was going to say. So basically, I've received some feedback. You know, we went through this process last year. I received some feedback from other districts. And the feedback I received is that, you know, while we send in our committee assignments that are our preferred committee assignments, something that another district does is that when we get to that January board meeting, is that the chair brings the list of everybody's requested assignments, and then collaboratively as a board, we discuss it as a board. So the decision is not made solely by one individual on the board, who is the committee chair. It becomes a very collaborative process of amongst the board regarding like which committees we feel we'd both all be suited for, or what are our strengths, weaknesses, all those things. So it becomes a much more collaborative process. And I thought I read something in our policy that sort of lends to that, but it's going to take me a second to find it because I apologize, I can't find it. So I just want to get feedback on that because, like I said, I liked the way this other district did it because it felt much more collaborative versus the chair assigning.
So I don't want to get too deep into this discussion because this would actually lend itself to a discussion of the policy. But to clarify, I think you're looking at General Statement of Policy 2. If you go to number 2, scroll down, and it says Committee Assignments. And it kind of explains that whole process. I can read it if you'd like. I'll read the first part. Unless otherwise specified, board members will be assigned or appointed to advisory committees, councils, and agencies by the board chair.
In consultation with the board. That's exactly where I read
So
it.
the board,
in consultation with the board. So that's where I felt like in policy, it doesn't become a sole board director decision, but you're in consultation with the entire board.
1.4 says that as well.
and that's happens at the January organizational meeting, which is
our first board meeting, and then our second meeting is following that right in the same time, because we have 2 board meetings in January. One is the organizational meeting, and the second one is the regular board meeting, and we usually assign it at the organizational meeting.
Right, and last year, if I recall, there was no discussion. We were handed a piece of paper. I'm not talking about the main committees. I'm talking about all, like, I want to call them the subcommittees. So there really was no discussion of those subcommittees. So that's where I wanted to get board feedback on that.
Does the board, it's not written in here, and I can't remember, does the board vote to approve the representation on the committees?
Not the
They're
subcommittees.
assigned, not the subcommittees.
So it's
Okay,
only.
just the executive board.
It's only the
Yeah.
executive committees.
I just wanted
There's
to
3.
make sure I understood that. Okay.
So the executive, teaching, learning, policy, and finance are the ones that board members nominate and vote for. And then any ad hoc or
They don't nominate, you
Committees.
put in your request, and the chair assigns, after speaking with everybody, on their own, and then the chair assigns and lets them know ahead of time, I
That's
believe.
correct, but I'm requesting that we look at a different process that I just
That would,
described.
and I think in my mind, given that we've been guided by this policy, that would require a change in policy.
Yeah, and I'm saying I don't think it would, because the policy actually states that by the board chair in consultation with the board. And when I read the word "the board," that is total of all individuals on the board.
And I would
Not
read it.
one-off
I would
conversations.
read it like the board chair asks, like our process is, asks for people to declare their interests, directors to declare their interests, and based on their interests and their experience, then they get assigned. That's how I would read it, because that's how it's been done.
Just because we've done something in the past doesn't mean it's always the way we need to do things
I'm
going
saying that's how
forward.
I would read
Correct.
this.
I'm saying
Because precedent has been set. Now, if the board is interested in reopening this policy to take a different approach, that's another conversation.
Yeah, and I'm saying I don't think we need to open up the policy based on the way it's worded. I'm just recommending a more collaborative way of doing this.
Can you give examples of what kind of discussion you're looking to have in January?
So in December, we turn in our
Correct.
requests for different committees, all of them. And then at the board table, after we vote in the chair, because the new chair would be the one who would be, at that point, would fall under this policy, we would hand out the list of everybody's requests, and then we would have a collaborative discussion on where do people fit within those committees. And it might be as simple as like, yes, Jess, you are on curriculum, you want to be on curriculum, perfect, great, check. And Lisa, you're on curriculum, you want to be on curriculum, great, we'll continue. But the process becomes much more collaborative versus the chair who is currently the chair, who may not be the chair because it is a voting process, then that chair is not making the decision in December for how the board is going to serve in the future. Does that make sense? So it becomes a collaborative process at the board table.
So if I may add, so we have a policy here. The primary concern is that the board chair in consultation with the board and then board members right after that, with the way it's been done. There is an appointment, there is consideration for how the chair assigns people to committee, including the proven ability to work effectively and collaboratively in a committee environment, amongst other things, as well as availability. So if we are going to change the policy, then we probably need to bring that up at the study session, the way we normally do, and then review the policy. But right now, the policy does say that the chair does assign. And in consultation, you're saying that that's the part that you're confused about, and if that's not spelled out, then we need to change the policy.
Point of order, I don't believe we need a change of policy. The wording of the policy says the board chair in consultation with the board, which is all of us sitting here at this table.
Well, that's what I'm
So
trying to point out.
Maybe I'm stating that our past policy did not follow, or our past procedure did not follow policy.
No, I heard that Chair Crosby said she interpreted it one way, and you're saying you interpreted it another way, and then she added on precedence. And if there's a problem with interpretation, then the policy needs to be changed to be more discreet. And that's not something we can do right now in this board meeting. So if there's a concern that we weren't following policy, or if there's, and because of the confusion of the language, then we need to bring up the policy for review. But right now, it clearly states that the definition of consultation is not defined here per se, and the way it's been done in the past is one way. So if we're going to change it, we probably need to change the policy.
Can I speak quickly?
Yes, please.
I recall an example, and I don't have my notes out, from a time where we did attend a meeting. It was handed to us, like, here's kind of what you want, what you were interested in. And I think we had made some changes at the table. This is going back at least 2 or 3 years. I've been here a little bit. So I would say, I felt like once that sheet was handed out, there was conversation, which I would be called consultation with the board. But I feel like if there's not, if everyone comes and then we all have to try to, I think that's possible. But I think that there has to be some structure given, and then if changes need to be made, that would be open for consultation and conversation with the board to collaborate. But I feel like I've been moved before, based upon.
I don't remember that, but I'm okay.
Well, I feel like it was because we didn't always have the days and the times of the meetings exactly laid out. So if you didn't know when they were, you might have been surprised.
The other thing I want to point out to everybody is that just because you're the liaison to a committee from the board doesn't, you're the liaison to that committee. You can still attend, we all can attend any committee meetings that we so choose and listen, which is our primary role anyways, to listen and get feedback. So between what you're saying and I am going to lean on precedent, because when it comes to legal policy, when it comes to legal, which policy leans on legal, precedent is what takes place. Does it mean that there wouldn't be flexibility? I believe it happened this year with MSHSL, where Amy, you became the MSHSL rep. So, I mean, it's not like there's no flexibility with consultation with the board. If there's a date change, if there's a difference of interests, if the board all says, yeah, then this makes sense. So where it makes sense, when it makes sense, I think
I guess in my world of business, I'm all about collaboration, and so I fully support that. When I filled out my report where we get paid for sitting on committees that we serve on, I had one committee because the committees that I was put on last year, they don't actually have meetings. So I think that needs to become part of the process versus the chair assigning someone to committees where there really is no work to do, which is what happened to me this past year. I'm not trying to whine or complain, but I think a collaborative process where we can all sit and discuss how much time we have available. I know we all have different skill sets. We all have different times we can give. We all have different talent. And so I believe rather than having one person assign it, having a collaborative discussion, like you said, Director Bernack, I think is a much healthier thing for our board.
I think we're saying the exact same thing, to be honest with you.
Correct.
I think
But
that if you don't
Chair
come
Crosby
to,
is challenging me
if the board,
to not
if the
do
board
that.
chair does not, I don't hear her challenging this at all. If we don't come to the board with some sort of structure to start, let's be honest, we need some sort of structure. And if you really have an interest in knowing what my first choices were, is that what you're asking? Because I heard you say, I would want everyone to share their, I mean, again, it's an email. I think it starts the process of collaboration and consultation and go from there. And absolutely at the assignment, bring up that you didn't have enough to do. That'd be great. I mean, we can all talk about like,
Oh, I
hey,
had plenty of committees to go to. I just wasn't the primary on them. So, and to clarify for that, the other district that I spoke to, which I know you're very close with that, the chair on that committee or on that in that district, he referenced that he does bring as the chair the whole spreadsheet of everybody's assignments, and then they do discuss it as a board. So it's very transparent. It's a very transparent process. And
I don't know who you're referring to, but
I can
we
share that off.
certainly
I can
can
share that offline.
revisit making changes to the policy, and I think in the meantime, we
not
can make a
recommending any-
collaborative effort.
Yeah, I'm not recommending any changes to the actual policy. Thank you.
if it's a clerical thing, just bring everyone's requests and staple them together. You don't have to build a spreadsheet, but you can copy our forms. Happy to share what I was interested in the past.
Thank you. So in January, we will be having our organizational meeting, and like I said, I think in the next day or two, I'll be sending out an email to board directors. So be thinking about where you believe your strengths will serve the district best in the next calendar year. We'll move on to our MSBA Leadership Conference registration. We are all registered. The dates are January 11th and 12th at the Minneapolis Convention Center, and just like years past, we've had some really good learnings come out of there, and it's an opportunity for us to improve our strengths and grow our weaknesses. So I just wanted to touch on that, and then that moves us to policy. So this is our second reading of policy 208. It's been reviewed, and a first reading was held November 27th prior to this final reading for board approval. So board action is requested. I'm going to ask for a motion in a second, and then we'll open up for questions or comments. Can I get a motion to approve policy 208?
Made.
By Director Olsted, and a second?
Second.
By Director Bullion, and I'll open it to board directors for comments.
Yes, I'm happy with the changes that were made to the policy. I like how it is simpler to read. And I like that we added, those two different statutes on the bottom that the policy is guided by. I was questioning, what are the little?
Those statutes were already there, but yeah.
You want to know what those little things are that are floating on there?
Little bubbles, Director Herman?
That's just for the draft.
I think it's just some.
So does the policy reflect those changes?
We removed those.
Okay.
Those comments.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, I think the revisions are good. The discussion was robust. And so if we're ready to approve and there are no other comments, we should do that. All right.
Would this be the right number of readings of this policy, just to clarify?
That's my understanding. That's what it says I can't find it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 14A, second reading of policy board policy approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. Thanks, everybody. Second reading of policy, we have a list. They're all listed there in the board packet. You don't need me to do that. So these have been reviewed and presented for 2 readings prior to this final approval, and board action is requested. I'll ask for a motion in a second on all unless someone wants one or two pulled out for any reason. Okay, can I get a motion to approve all 9?
Aye.
So made by Director Atkinson, a second by Director France. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. Then we move on to our administrative reports. We'll start with Superintendent Thomas.
Thank you, Chair Crosby, Board of Directors. Just real briefly tonight, just reminding our community that on our district website, you'll see a box entitled Strategic Planning. The application has been launched. There's calendars, there's kind of the process of what will be entailed, and so I just want to remind our community to take a look at that. We'll keep that open through December. We have that open for a little bit longer to catch some publications that we want to make sure that we can put that in as well to capture all the different sources of medium that we can advertise through. So that's my update, and I'll keep you all posted as we go into the next phase of assembling the team and share that roster with the board when we get there.
Thank you.
Dr. Thomas?
You know what? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do you have a date that application closes? Just
Christie, was that 31st?
The 31st.
December? Okay.
Thank you.
And then just 1 second here. Yeah, let me just grab. Sorry, I'm trying to, why don't I let our student come back? Yeah, it's not
Well, we'll
opening
start
up.
with the admin reports, if any
I have a couple more.
administrators have reports at this time. Okay, thank you. So that leaves us to board reports, and we'll start with Rihanna.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Rihanna. I am the student body representative. So some of the things that we've been working on, our development committee they're finishing the college pennants that we're putting on the classrooms and just around the school for the teachers and everybody. So we just finished that this week, our communications board just created the Laker Lens, which is a really fun way for our students to be more involved with Spirit. And it's essentially a Google Classroom, and then at any sports games, they can submit a picture of them being there, dressed up in school spirit, and they submit that, and it just gets everybody more involved. So we just started doing that, and we are still doing our weekly graphics to update everybody at the school on what's going on. For our special events committee, we just finished No Shave November, which went really, really well. We do not have the final numbers yet, but that is something that we just finished this month. Our Sunshine Committee is currently working on a pancake breakfast for the students free of charge on Monday for Christmas winter break. And then our Community Service Committee just finished with Sonia's Hope for Children wrapping gifts on Friday and Saturday this past weekend, which also went well. And then they are working on a cocoa and cram for students on Monday, which, if you're not familiar with what that is, it's hot cocoa and studying for finals. So that's on Monday.
Monday.
Yes. And our concessions and fundraising committee, we are currently basketball concessions, which are going really well so far. And we are working on some fundraising ideas for charity and also student council and anything around the school. And then that's just general for the year. We are starting our work on our winter dance, our winter semi-formal, and all the events that we have. And we also have some new events, which I'm really excited about, that we're currently working on. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If anybody has any questions on anything specific, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you, Rihanna.
Thank you.
Very informative.
Yes.
Should we
You guys
come
have a
back
lot
to
going
you
on.
briefly?
Yeah,
Yes. Okay.
yeah, thank you. Sorry, I couldn't, the document was just like stuck spinning opening, but I have it open for my notes. Just want to bring just a couple more things to the community. So we have our MLK Junior breakfast that will take place January 15th. Again, partnering with Prior Lake Rotary Club for that. It will be January 15th at 7:30 at the high school. We also have several city, township, and community organizations who are again co-sponsoring this event. That's open for our entire public to attend. Simultaneously with that, for our staff, we partner with our Teachers of the Year program. So also want to invite folks to join us on Monday, January 15th. Following the breakfast, we will recognize our Teachers of the Year. So that's going to be a great opportunity for 23-24 school year. Kindergarten registration. All principals will hold kindergarten information night Tuesday at 6:30 at Red Tail Ridge. And then Spanish immersion parent panel will be on Wednesday at 6:30 this week at Lodel. And this Thursday, online registration will open, so very exciting for that. So please, community, attend info sessions. Great opportunities for you to send your kindergartners here to Prior Lake Savage Area Schools. And then lastly, with the season upon us, our Tree of Warmth. I just want to thank everyone who donated clothing items to the Prior Lake Chamber of Commerce Tree of Warmth clothing drive. The Prior Lake Rotary Club also assisted with the collection this year, and we collected more items than we have ever historically done in years past. All winter clothing items are being distributed to students throughout our district who are in need of during this season. So just a huge thank you to our community for stepping up and helping out our students and families who need it most. So those are my reports for tonight.
Thank you. We'll go back to board director reports. Any work?
I was going to talk about the delegate assembly, Enrique. Enrique and I went to the delegate assembly last weekend in Bloomington. It's a statewide assembly of school board members that were voted to represent their area. We are in Area 17, which includes us, of course, Shakopee, Jordan, Belle Plaine. I feel like I'm forgetting one.
Jordan?
Didn't I say?
Yep, you said it.
Okay. There were 40 submitted resolutions in this well, not all of them made this book. It's good bedtime reading. If you're wanting to put kids to sleep, I recommend this. But it's very interesting. So 40 submitted resolutions and 23 were actually forwarded to the Assembly. MSBA gives their recommendations. They recommend either passage or no passage or no recommendation. 15 passed and 8 did not in our assembly. Among the ones that passed, a couple of them, of course, were the clarifying the SRO language, eliminating the sales tax on construction projects, the legislature to provide permanent funding for the approved science of reading programs, and then also a resolution that passed eliminating the per pupil cap on long-term facilities management revenue. So it was very interesting. And what I personally took away from this was it was great to get perspectives, of course, from people around the state, but also rural versus more urban districts. So for example, the SRO resolution, there was somebody who got up from a very rural district and she said, it's not like I don't support moving this resolution forward, but she said, our district will never have an SRO. She's like, so this is not something that really hits home for us very much. And it was just a good perspective to have. And there was a lot of really great conversation in terms of, okay, I thought I was going to vote on this resolution this way, but now I might have changed my mind. And it's kind of a very split-second, very fast decision you have to make. It's a voice vote with the room of, 300 people?
115 delegates, but it felt like 300
Okay,
at times.
it felt like 300. Okay, so it was half that. But so if they couldn't determine, from a voice vote, we had little paddles that we had to put up. And so the next steps, this isn't writing laws, this isn't writing legislation, it was just resolutions to forward to the state government. And I was really impressed with like I said, it's a very big book, and we got this ahead of time, so we could review it if we had questions or things we wanted to say at the assembly. But it was very interesting, and it's a 2-year term, so I'll go back next year. And you will too, right, Enrique? Okay. It was very interesting. I loved it. I loved the experience. And it was great to see what other school board members from around the state were thinking and what was top of mind. And maybe what you thought might have been top of mind, but really wasn't for some districts. It was just very interesting. So glad I went. It was wonderful.
Thanks for being our voice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Both of you. Other board reports? Okay, well, we go ahead.
Yeah, I can add
Sorry,
on to that.
I'm following the order. Okay. Waiting patiently.
Sure, I can add on to that and say that you're right, there's definitely kind of a dichotomy of urban versus rural, and then us in the middle of suburban, where some of the effects we felt were more urban, while others were a bit more rural, and then some other things were kind of uniquely our own, along with other second or third ring suburbs. There was quite a bit of robust discussion. We got to see kind of what are those current pain points that various districts are dealing with, whether it's gun control, gun safety, storage of weapons. We saw one perspective from the urban schools, whereas the rural schools were saying, hey, what about our skeet shooting club? If we put this into effect, then what is that? What's the impact for our ability to compete or have students walk around with their skeet shooting equipment? So just opened up the entire conversation and able to view the world a bit differently. Got to see quite a bit of discussion and engage a lot of discussion with respect to public schools versus charter schools and what would be some of the unintended consequences if we were to put certain measures in place for accountability or for funding and restricting funding going one direction versus another. Yeah, it was a riveting time for sure.
And it went very quickly.
It went fast. Even without snacks, it went fast. Snacks were forbidden this year versus last year. Let's see, other updates. Policy Advisory Committee and the Special Education special education, not occasion, education advisory committees both meet on December 14th. So that should be a fun day to do more policy work and then also see what more special education professionals have for us there. Southwest Metro currently working through teacher contracts. We were, I believe we were close to a tentative agreement, then had to reverse course and are reworking that presently. We also made the decision to dissolve our Southwest Metro Education Foundation just from the sheer nature of we didn't have enough interested people willing to do that hard board work. So we had to dissolve that, which means one of my subcommittee assignments will go away. Delegate Assembly we talked about, and that's pretty much it for me.
Thank you. We had our Teaching and Learning Committee this evening, 4 o'clock, and we had a robust discussion around a 600 series of policies regarding 606, which is our review of learning resources policy. We honestly ran out of time, and we decided to move that discussion to, I believe our next meeting is January 8th, so we'll be taking a deeper dive into that policy so that we can just give it the fair amount of time, since it's an important policy in our district, and we have a lot of different diverse perspectives that we want to make sure are included in that conversation. Then I have some exciting news to share with you all. Last night at the VFW banquet, a teacher from our district was selected as the Prior Lake VFW 2nd District, which represents 36 posts across the state. This teacher was selected as the Teacher of the Year for this district. This teacher is a 4th grade teacher at Jeffers Pond, has been teaching our district for 8 years, and congratulations goes out to Brooke Zahn as the VFW Teacher of the Year. She will now be entered into a selection of 7 other district winners for a chance to be awarded the VFW State Teacher of the Year. So fingers crossed for Brooke, and thank you.
Thank you. Is that an annual award?
That I'm not sure.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Any other board reports? Okay, just briefly, we had the AMSD meeting that we talked a little bit about legislative platform, which we've heard, and a lot of the similar themes are coming through. And that will be on our study session next week. And then we heard from a state demographer, and it was really informative. I took a lot of notes. But the bottom line is we are becoming more and more diverse. I think we were, one stat was, if I can find it, I took a lot of notes. 2.3 jobs are currently available for everyone who wants one. And a quarter of those are all in healthcare, but others being retail, food service, manufacturing, and of course, education. I don't know how depressing I want to get here.
I believe I also uploaded, I'm sorry, I believe that's also in the Fridays 5 from a couple of Fridays ago. I put the link to the report so you all can catch it there as well. But yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, and just declining to flat birth rates and becoming extremely more diverse, particularly in the metro area. So
And more women, I believe.
Yes.
More women than men.
Yes. 1/3 of school-age population currently in Minnesota is BIPOC, and that was 10% in 1990. I mean, stats like that, right? The growth is tremendous. So I just wanted to touch on that briefly. And that is the end of our board reports, and we can touch on future events, which we have an added school board study session next Monday at 6. And then there's no school for the winter break, December 21st to January 1st, which I'm sure everyone is looking forward to. So we'll adjourn. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So made.
By Director Atkinson, and a second?
Second.
By Director Velazquez. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Well, that passes 7-0, and we'll go to closed session here after a break.